In the quiet of Willow Creek, Nebraska, where soybean fields stretched like green oceans under a wide summer sky, I never imagined my land would become a courtroom. My name is Henry Walsh, a third-generation farmer, and my world was my daughter Ellie, our collie Rusty, and the earth my grandfather tilled. But when Margaret Hensley, the iron-fisted president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, stepped onto my property with a clipboard and a smirk, she set in motion a reckoning that would leave her broken, the town whispering, and my fields whispering louder still. If you want to know what makes a man turn his land into a judge, jury, and executioner, stay with me. This story doesn't just spin at bites. It was July, the air thick with heat and the hum of cicadas. Ellie, 9 years old, was laughing near the soybean rows, her braid bouncing as she tossed a stick for Rusty. His brown and white fur flashed between the plants, tail a joyful blur. I was mending a fence, sweat soaking my flannel, when a black sedan roared down the gravel road to our farm, kicking up dust like a storm. I squinted, wiping my brow, as the car screeched to a stop. Out stepped Margaret Hensley, heels sinking into the dirt, her navy blazer crisp despite the heat. A laminated HOA badge gleamed on her chest, and her eyes were cold as a banker's handshake. "Mr. Walsh," she said, her voice sharp, flipping through her clipboard. "Your soybean field violates Code 47B. It exceeds height restrictions and disrupts neighborhood aesthetics. You've got 10 days to mow it down or face a $900 fine." I laughed, short and bitter. "This is my farm, Margaret. 5 acres my family's owned since 1920. Your HOA doesn't touch it." She clicked her pen, unfazed. "The new zoning map, passed last month, extends our oversight. We're elevating Willow Creek's image. Rogue farmers like you don't get a pass." Rusty growled, ears back, and Ellie called softly, "Dad, what you want?" I stepped closer, my shadow falling over her. "You're on my land. I don't answer to your rules, and I don't need your permission to grow crops." Margaret's smile was thin, venomous. "You'll comply, or we'll escalate." She glanced at Ellie, then Rusty, her eyes narrowing. "Escalate," I said, voice low. "You've got 10 seconds to leave." She didn't budge. The sedan's back door opened, and a man stepped out broad, buzz-cut, in a gray polo that screamed hired muscle. He held my own shovel, snatched from the barn. Margaret nodded, and he marched into my field, swinging. Soybean stalks snapped, leaves flying like torn paper. Ellie screamed. Rusty barked, hackles raised. I lunged, but Margaret blocked me. "Touch him, and you're in jail by nightfall," she hissed. "Stop," I shouted, but the man didn't pause. Rusty charged, and in one fluid motion, the man swung the shovel. The blade cracked against Rusty's skull, a sound like a branch snapping. He collapsed, legs twitching, then still. Ellie's wail tore through me. Time froze. I shoved Margaret aside, gravel crunching as she stumbled, and tackled the man. My fist met his jaw, blood spraying. He crumpled, groaning. I turned to Margaret, my voice deadly calm. "I don't call cops. I don't call lawyers. I call the dirt, and it listens." She backed away, eyes wide, then fled to her car. The sedan peeled out, leaving dust and silence. I knelt beside Rusty, Ellie sobbing into my chest. His collar, red with a brass tag, lay in the dirt. The soybeans swayed, and the earth beneath us stirred, awake. Rusty's grave was a small mound by the field, dug with my hands, no shovel, just pain. Ellie sat on the porch, clutching Rusty's collar, her eyes empty. The next day, an HOA email arrived. Failure to comply within 7 days will result in legal action. Margaret didn't apologize, she doubled down. That night, in the barn, I gathered old oak posts from my father's fence line. I carved them into spikes, etching words into the wood. Violation, no mercy. Fine, $900 or blood. I coated the tips in molasses and bacon grease, knowing the fire ants in these parts needed little invitation. By dawn, the spikes were planted in the field, hidden among the soybeans, a silent jury waiting. For days later, Margaret returned. Same sedan, same smugness. She stepped out in a tailored gray suit, holding a sleek camera. "July 18th, she said, recording. "Documenting non-compliant vegetation. Obstruction of sightlines, third offense." She didn't glance at Rusty's grave. Her heels clicked as she strode toward the field. "This footage goes to the HOA board, Mr. Walsh. You were warned." I leaned against the porch, arms crossed. "You want compliance? It's in the soybeans." She smirked, spotting a path I'd cut through the field, neat and inviting. Finally learning, Henry, she said, marching in, camera raised. This goes straight to the board. The moment she disappeared into the rows, I struck a match. The flames caught fast dry stalks, rags soaked in kerosene, and years of buried rage ignited like a prayer. The fire whispered, not roared, and the soybeans became a tribunal. Margaret's scream split the air, raw and animal, as the heat closed in. "What is this?" she shrieked, crashing through stalks. "Walsh, stop this." I stood at the field's edge, unmoving. "You stopped listening when you killed my dog in front of my daughter." She burst from the smoke, clothes torn, face streaked with soot. Her heel was gone, hair wild. She tripped, falling onto a spike. It pierced her calf, splintering, and the ants came thousands, red and ravenous, swarming her legs, her arms. She thrashed, screaming, tearing at her skin. "Get them off." I stepped forward, calm. "You burned my world first. You just didn't hear it scream." "Help me," she gasped, blistered, reaching out. "You called this order," I said. "I'm just agreeing." I turned, her sobs fading into the crackle of flames. The soybeans burned, and the earth remembered. Margaret crawled from the field, a ruin of her former self, blouse shredded, hands bloody, eyes hollow. She collapsed at the edge, whimpering. "Call an ambulance," she rasped. "Good," I said, crouching. "Feel what it's like to be broken." I dropped Rusty's collar beside her. "You don't get to forget." She recoiled, tears mixing with ash. I walked away, the sky dark with smoke. Thunder rumbled, and somewhere below, Rusty listened. The next night, rain fell, soft and cold. I was fixing the barn door when headlights cut through the dusk. Not Margaret's sedan, a pickup, rusted, pulling up by the back fence. The man from before, the one who killed Rusty, stepped out, face bruised, holding a crowbar and a gas can. "Walsh," he bellowed, "I know what you did to her. She's in the hospital, half mad. This ends tonight." He marched toward the field, gas can swinging. The wind shifted, sharp, and crows descended first 2, then a dozen, diving at his head. He swung the crowbar, cursing, and stumbled into the north patch, where the soil was soft from rain. I'd buried old barbed wire and broken posts there, untouched since the fire. He didn't scream. The crows settled on the fence, silent. By morning, all that remained was a boot, a bent crowbar, and a scrap of his shirt, snagged on a stalk. The earth had swallowed him whole. Margaret didn't vanish quietly. Days later, she was seen wandering Willow Creek at midnight, barefoot in a hospital gown, muttering apologies to the air. She knelt in soybean fields, not just mine, whispering, "I didn't mean to break it." The sheriff picked her up twice, but there were no charges, just pity. "She's not Margaret anymore," he said. The HOA folded, its office shuttered, its bylaws burned in a dumpster behind Town Hall. Margaret's name was erased, her power gone. By September, my soybeans were golden, heavy, sweeter than any harvest I'd known. Ellie stood beside me as we shucked an ear, its kernels gleaming like polished gold. "It's shining," she whispered. We filled baskets, then crates, and the town couldn't get enough. At the harvest festival, folks lined up, calling it the best they'd ever tasted. They didn't know what fed a trustee's blood, Margaret's ruin, the land's justice. I watched them eat, their smiles unaware, and felt the earth hum beneath my boots. I kept one relic, Margaret's clipboard, charred, found in the ashes. I nailed it to the barn, a reminder of what happens when you step on a man's soul. Ellie tied Rusty's collar to a fence post, its red leather bright against the wood. At night, I'd walk the field, stopping at Rusty's grave. "We did it, boy," I'd say, my hand on the warm soil. Once, I heard a bark soft, proud, gone when I turned. The soybeans swayed, and justice grew deeper than any law. This land isn't just dirt. It's memory, holding kindness and cruelty in equal measure. Margaret thought she could rule it with fines and threats, but power without heart is just noise. She trespassed on something ancient, and the earth answered. This isn't about revenge, it's about what happens when you push a man too far, when you break what he loves and call it policy. Some fight with fists, some with silence, and some let the land speak for them. The real question is, what would you do? If someone took what you loved, would you fight, or would you let the ground settle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me where you stand on violence, on injustice, on the line between right and wrong. Did Henry go too far, or was the land's justice fair? Share your view, and let's talk about the fire that burns when the world pushes too hard. If this story hit you, like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more tales that cut deep. Now go grow something real and treat it like it matters.